Back to Hollywoodland Photos. My name is Cassidy Krieger, and for those that know me, you know that I'm a Wuthering Heights fanatic. The book is one of the most meaningful and important novels in my life. And the 1939 movie is one of the most important and one of my favourite films of all time, and I've watched every single Wuthering Heights adaptation I can get my hands on again and again and again. So when Emerald Fennell announced that she was going to be adapting her own Wuthering Heights back in 2024, I was very, very curious. Then when she announced that Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi would be playing Cathy and Heathcliff, my curiosity spiked even more because those two beautiful Australians are not the Heathcliff and Cathy that Emily Brontë wrote way back in 1847. But I wanted to give it benefit of the doubt because I really love all these people individually as artists. They've all made incredible movies, and I always support the Aussies. But what I saw this week was not Wuthering Heights. And I don't say that lightly. I have a lot of love for this book. I read it when I was 17 and fell in love with it and have read it more than once a year since. I played Cathy on stage in 2015, so I've literally walked in her shoes. I walked the moors in Howarth when I was 22 and sat in the room where Emily Brontë wrote Wuthering Heights. I've studied the novel, the 1939 adaptation, and the structure of this story for years. So when I say this film didn't feel like Emily Brontë, I mean it on a structural and emotional level. So an incredible cast. I mean, we have Margot Robbie as Cathy, Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff, Martin Clunes played Mr. Earnshaw, Shazad Latif was really a great actor as Edgar Linton. He was a great actor. The character wasn't so great. Alison Oliver, again, is a star in the making. She was incredible as Isabella. And Hong Chow, I really hope I've said that correctly, plays Nellie Dean. I will also say, this is probably my only positive I took from this film. The cinematography by Linus Sandgren was spectacular. Visually, it was stunning. It was what you think Wuthering Heights is. It was sweeping, atmospheric. You thought you were on the moors. That element was truly extraordinary. But that was the only thing I liked, because I didn't just dislike this film. I watched my favourite novel be torn apart and flattened into something that was almost unrecognisable. So let's get into it. Before I explain what went wrong, we need to be clear about something. Wuthering Heights, the book, the story, is not a sexual love story. It was written in 1847, so it really couldn't be. And it was written by Emily Brontë, an unmarried woman in her 20s that hadn't really travelled much. I think she'd been to Belgium. And lived in Howarth. And if you don't know much about Howarth and the Yorkshire Moors, they're very isolated. So this novel that came from her head is incredible, but it was not a sexual love story. It is an obsessive, possessive, psychologically suffocating relationship, Heathcliff and Cathy, built on exclusion, class, race, and resentment. The tragedy of Heathcliff and Cathy is that they can never have each other. And that's the point of Wuthering Heights. Their love is repressed, denied, twisted, and then redirected into revenge and destruction. It is not fulfilled. It is not consummated. So then what I watched the other day, watching Heathcliff and Cathy have sex everywhere, honestly almost felt like an anticlimax. The entire point of Wuthering Heights is that they don't get to have that release. And once you give it to them, you flatten their story and flatten the tragedy. So there are so many places I felt this film went wrong. So many places I wanted to walk out of the cinema. I was very close to it. I was very lucky to be invited to the opening night. And I wanted to walk out many, many times. Some people actually did. But I wanted to stay to the end to give you guys a review. I felt the pacing was really, really slow in some parts. At some parts I was bored and I was looking at my watch thinking, when's this over? I've never thought that during a Wuthering Heights movie. It was oddly hollow in others, but the real issue was structural. That's where I got angry. Key characters were either completely changed or missing. Hindley, Cathy's brother in the novel, is essential to the story. He becomes the abusive drunk. He's the catalyst for Heathcliff's degradation and resentment. In this version, he's removed. He's not even there. Instead, Mr. Earnshaw, Cathy's father, played by Martin Clunes, is rewritten as the angry, abusive drunk. And that fundamentally alters the generational tragedy of this story. Because in the novel, Hindley deteriorates after the death of his beloved wife, and he emotionally abandons their son, Hareton. That decay matters. Changing it isn't just cosmetic, it shifts the moral architecture of this story. I'm getting angry, I'm tripping on my words. And then we have Isabella Linton, who's in this movie, but completely changed. For what reason, I do not know. In the novel, Isabella is Edgar's sister. She is naive. She is seduced by Heathcliff. She believes she's entering a grand romance that Heathcliff manipulates her into believing that he loves her. In this adaptation, this movie, she becomes Edgar's ward for reasons that were not ever explained. And Heathcliff literally tells her he is marrying her purely to get back at Cathy. He explains it as if the audience needs to have it spelled out. In the novel, we don't get the villain monologue. We see manipulation unfold. When a character tells the audience the motive out loud, it removes the tension and the intelligence. It felt like the film didn't trust the viewers to understand subtext. Their relationship was beyond a joke. Absolutely loved seeing her on all fours with a dog collar around her neck, barking like a dog, because that made total sense. It was super funny and really respectful to the Brontes. Don't even get me started. And then there was the removal of Lockwood. I mean, Lockwood is the character at the beginning of the book that comes to rent Wuthering Heights, or comes to rent Thrushcross Grange, my apologies, and comes to Wuthering Heights. And he's the man that Nellie Dean tells the story to. He's not there at all. Then Nellie Dean, who in the novel is morally complex and unreliable in her narrative of Heathcliff and Cathy's story, she's turned into a straight-up villain. And then Joseph, in the novel, who is a middle-aged, Bible-obsessed oppressive, becomes some sort of sick BDSM figure where Cathy has her sexual awakening by watching him have sex in the stables. One of the most frustrating omissions, especially in a film released in 2026, was the complete ignoring of Heathcliff's race. In the novel, he is described as dark-skinned, foreign, a gypsy, and he's treated as other. That exclusion is foundational to his psychology, how he acts. If you remove that context, you remove the reason for his rage beyond just Cathy. You cannot flatten Heathcliff into just an angry romantic anti-hero that you find sexy. As Emerald Fennell said, Elordi, who is gorgeous, we love Jacob Elordi, so proud of him as an Australian. She said that Jacob Elordi reminded her of an illustration of Heathcliff in an early copy of the book that she once owned, and insisted he was her vision of the character, completely ignoring what Emily Brontë had written of Heathcliff. But he is a racialised outsider in a rigid class system, and that really matters. Also, and it's funny that I sit here and say this as Wuthering Heights 1939 is my favourite film, and this also cuts out the second generation. But I thought as filmmakers, and as filmmakers have more say in what they can make, and there's more ability to make grander films, I thought this might change the complete absence of the second half of the novel. That's not a small cut. The second generation, so we've got Hareton, who is the son of Hindley, Cathy's brother. We have young Cathy, who's obviously the daughter of Cathy and Edgar. And we have Linton, who is the daughter of Heathcliff and Isabella. This is the redemption arc of the book. Without it, the story becomes pure misery without a resolution about two horrible people. Cathy and Heathcliff are horrible people, and we can say that. So when you remove this, the redemption arc, the story just falls flat. Brontë wrote a generational cycle that eventually softens, and in some way, Wuthering Heights, the novel, does have a happy ending. Removing that just flattens the story into a bleak aesthetic for aesthetic's sake. You just want a sexy romp in the woods. Well, go write one yourself. So I hate critiquing movies. I'm a filmmaker myself, and I know how much work goes into them. From the minute you start to write them, you start to formulate them. It's such a fun journey. But when you take a book so beloved as Wuthering Heights, so dense, so full of incredible writing that was... Cathy didn't even get to say, I am Heathcliff. She never says, I am Heathcliff. We never see Cathy's ghost at the window. That's... The acting, I'm not going to get stuck into. I think Margot and Jacob are incredible actors on their own. I'm sure the other actors are as well. In this, they fell flat. It might have been because of the writing. I don't know. Because this movie felt really slow in parts, really boring in others, and strangely loud in the wrong places. The opening scene was ridiculous beyond measure. I was disgusted from the moment it started. But that wasn't what upset me the most. We're all entitled to adapt things to our own pleasure. What upset me the most is that it felt like it was uninterested in the novel's emotional truth. And I've read so many reviews of people who loved it, and their reviews always start with, I haven't read the book. And that frustrates me to my core. When you've lived inside the story as I have, when you've defended Heathcliff as more than just a romantic villain, when you understand the structure and the way it's built and why it's built that way, it's so hard to watch this epic story simplified to sex. Wuthering Heights doesn't need to be modernised, it needs to be understood. I have been so frustrated this week. I sat in a cinema with a lot of influencers who are all incredible and doing incredible things with their pages and whatnot, but they were all shocked when Heathcliff came back, sad when Cathy died. I could hear that they had never experienced this story in their lives, and I felt really angry and really sad. My God, read the damn book. Because the novel, it's far more radical, far more disturbing, far more passionate, and far more intelligent than what we saw on that screen. I can safely say I will never watch this adaptation again. I'm deeply disappointed that it got made. I'm sad that the Brontë Parsonage Museum have been a big part of it. I don't understand why they would okay it. And yeah, I went into this not knowing what to expect. And I wanted to walk in with open eyes and an open heart and an open mind. But I was truly disgusted, and I'm really saddened that I had to witness that. And I really hope that the younger generation of people that maybe haven't read Wuthering Heights don't just think that's what Wuthering Heights is. It's so much more. Emily Brontë's story deserves so much more. Emerald Fennell sits there and claims to be an Emily Brontë fan. Then why did you do that to her words?